guys, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we are in the E46 M3 now. She's been away for a couple of months. I've wanted to do some bits. We've had so much going on outside of the YouTubing stuff, and the E92's been taking shape, which I'm really happy with. But today we are going to fit the 4.1 ratio diff. Now Matt kindly did me a deal on his one out of his Z4M. It was sitting in my garage for, like I say, 6 months. I kept jacking it up, looking at it thinking, I need to get under there and fit that. The problem is the diff's a good 40 kilos, so it's a heavy old lump to try and manoeuvre into place. Yes, you can use a jack, but I'm going to be on the floor. You're not going to get 2 people under there if you need to line anything up. And I kept looking at it, kept putting it off, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to just take it to someone. Now, not just anyone, because if you watch the channel, I'm quite particular with who works on my car, and a name kept coming back for the diffs, and that was Derek at Everything M3. He's based in Banbury, which is in Oxfordshire, and he said, yeah, bring it down, we'll get it all fitted, and obviously he's got all the spare parts, so if there is any issues, he's going to be the man to find it. So follow us on this one today, where we're going to get the car fitted up with a 4.1 ratio diff. So I'll give you a run through on why you should fit a 4.1 ratio diff and potentially why you shouldn't. So the standard E46 M3 runs a gear ratio of something like 3.62, which is a good balance of acceleration, top speed and mile per gallon. Now obviously for a lot of manufacturers, fuel economy and emissions is important, so it has to be factored in. Now the problem is the E46 is geared for something silly like 190 plus mile an hour. Now don't quote me on that figure, but it's just not necessary. Unless you're going to force induction the engine, it's just never going to reach that. So it's potentially, it's wasted potential on acceleration. Now for me, I would rather have it quick up to 120, 130. I mean, the fastest I've ever been in it was 170, and that was in Germany on the Autobahn. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really appeal to me, that sort of speed in a car normally. On tracks, you probably see it 130, 140, maybe the Nürburgring if you've got the back straight a bit more. So I weighed up the options. You have a 3.6 gear ratio, which is the stock one. You have the 3.9 and the 4.1. The higher you go up the number, the shorter the ratio. So in theory, the faster the acceleration, the less top speed. The payoff is when you're cruising down the motorway, you're going to be sitting at a higher RPM, so you are going to lose some fuel economy, unfortunately. But like me, as a weekend toy, I don't really care. And the big push for doing this was when we was in the Alps. If you haven't seen the Euro trip video, which I'll include in a link, is I was really struggling in the hairpins between first and second. First gear felt too short and I was shifting midway through. Second felt a little bit too hard to lumber up the incline. So for me, I wanted to get a bit more of acceleration, a bit of a mid-range gear, and from what I've read in the E46 with the SMG, it just really livens everything up and improves acceleration. So it should be interesting to see what it does today. I mean, I'll give you an idea. Obviously before and after, I'm pretty familiar with the car. I mean, at 70 mile an hour now in 6th gear, we are just over 2,500 RPM. So you can barely hear the engine, it's not really struggling. I'm aware that that's going to change once the diff goes in, but as I said, there are other things involved as well. When you do it on an SMG car, you need to recalibrate it. Now I believe this is done similar to what I did with the E92, something on NCS Expert, that you change it so that it can rev match down properly, so that the auto knows when to shift up, because it's all going to change. So if you are planning to carry this out on an SMG car, it is something to bear in mind. Obviously you want it to work like a factory car, at least I do anyway. The manual guys, obviously it's just going to be a case of remove the old one and drop the new one in. So we go back to the top speed now. From what I've been advised, I'm probably going to be able to only reach around 180 mile an hour with the revised diff, which for me, I can't see the car pulling that comfortably anyway on most days. So I'm not particularly fast, as long as I get good acceleration to 140, get it a bit more lively through the gears, because it does feel long geared, especially compared to the DCT where I've got the 7 gears, so obviously BMW have balanced it out that way. But yeah, I'm really excited, and stay with us, and soon we'll be at Darrag's, and hopefully, like I say, no issues getting it fitted.
Fortunately, Darragh was only an hour away from me in Banbury, Oxfordshire, which made for a quick drive down the M40, and I was greeted by a lovely cup of tea, and the car was quickly wheeled into the workshop to get ready to take it apart. Once in the air, Darragh began stripping everything down, and the man does work at speed. He had the original diff out in under an hour, and the man knows what he's doing. You only have to have a quick look round his workshop to see his love for M3s is clear. So I knew I was in the right place, and it was clear he was definitely the man to be rebuilding the diff. So the diff was purchased from Matt. It obviously was fitted by someone else previously, and Darragh suggested taking it apart just to have a quick look, check things like the backlash, check that the gear mesh was all correct. And you know what, it's things like that I really like to see. It's the attention to detail, because you could have just thrown it in there and hoped for the best, but it was nice to see that everything was checked over, and he did advise that fortunately everything had been fitted correctly by the previous installer. Now the other big benefit for me was this was from a Z4M, and unknown to me at the time is they actually have a slightly better diff over the normal E46 one. It has an extra friction plate in it, so should provide better lockup, especially under heavy use. So I'm pleased to confirm that not only have I got the 4.1, but the car has also been upgraded. With the diff all back together, Darragh installed diff oil, fully synthetic from Castrol, and also included some friction modifier. Now the reason for the friction modifier is it can make the diff noisy without it, especially on tight figures of 8s. So we did install some of that under his suggestion. You can run without it. Generally you get better hookup, but unfortunately you can get a bit of a grumble. So we did put a bit of friction modifier in it just to keep it road friendly. And then it was just a case of watching Darren again work flat out to get the diff back in no time. The final piece of the puzzle was just getting the gearbox software reprogrammed so that it understood that the 4.1 was in there. Now, as advised at the beginning of the video, it's not such a problem for you manual guys, but for the SMG people out there, it will cause the car to not shift up correctly in auto mode, and it can be hesitant on the downshift, so it's certainly worth getting it done.
2 weeks have passed since we've had the 4.1 ratio diff fitted to the E46 M3. Now, when I left Darragh's, I was really happy with his attention to detail. His work is absolutely brilliant, and he was more than happy to have me floating around with a good cup of tea in my hand while he was busy at work. Now, when I left Darragh, I got in the car, I sort of driving back on roads I didn't know, just getting back onto the motorway, and I thought, do you know what, is it really worth it? Yeah, it's got a little bit more in-gear punch. It's a lot of outlay, a lot of work to get one fitted. And I sort of left the day thinking, you know what, it's done now. The car's had everything that I set out to do on it in terms of the drivetrain. It wasn't until that following afternoon that we went out and shot the M2 versus E46 M3 video. And it was the first time I pushed the car on roads I was familiar with in anger. And wow, what a difference. And straight away you can feel the initial torque increase, because the car just wants to break free in first and second so much more eagerly than it did before, which was great news for me because I love kicking the tail out in the right situation. And the other thing is when you're powering through the gears, I always used to find that I would sort of hang second and third on my back road blasting to avoid touching fourth and fifth, because as you did shift into those gears, it felt like the car was sort of losing its acceleration feel. But now it's just first, second, third, fourth, fifth, even into sixth. It still feels like it's screaming away. So should you fit a 4.1 ratio diff? I would definitely consider it on any car now if I was to buy another E46 and start from the beginning again. At first, like I said, I wasn't completely sold. I left there feeling it's a lot of outlay, but now being on the roads that I'm familiar with, and we ended up going to Caffeine and Machine the following day afterwards, and you know what, it has really just woken the whole car up. You find you've got such more in-gear pull in every gear, and you don't find that you're hanging gears not to go up into the higher gears. And it's, do you know what, really chuffed to bits of it. I can see why so many do it. So if you're in the market for sort of livening up the E46, giving it a bit more of a sporty feel through the gears, sort of a closer knit feeling gearbox, I would certainly recommend getting the 4.1 ratio fitted. For me, I wouldn't suggest the 3.9. I haven't driven it to speak from experience, but this is enough of an upgrade without sacrificing any of the daily compromise that I'm used to driving with. And I was coming back on the motorway and it was literally only sitting 500 RPM higher than where it was before. So time will tell with the fuel consumption, but overall really pleased with Darragh's works. And if you've seen the E46 versus M2 video, the car now happily will pull us drift in second gear, which before with the Super Sports it did feel like there's probably a bit too much traction for the power. You can also see in that video that we have a little run with the M2 versus the E46. Now the M2 is probably around 40 horsepower more, ton load more torque, similar sort of weight. But if you watch that video closely, you can see that the little E46 is holding its own now, and that M2 was a DCT, so it had a faster shifting, more capable gearbox, a more powerful engine. So I wouldn't say it's turned it into a straight line monster or anything like that, but it's certainly given it sort of that wake up edge. It's added more excitement to it, and I can't wait to get down to the, or up to even, the North Coast 500 next month, where we'll be tackling some obviously very tight and narrow roads in the E46 on the North Coast 500 road trip. So yeah, stay with us, guys. Like I say, not a massively detailed video on how to fit a diff, more sort of a driver's experience. And as the videos go on, especially with the road trip next month, I'll report back and let you know how I'm getting on with the diff. So obviously, if you've got any comments or questions, let us know. If you are enjoying the videos and the channel, please give us a like and a subscribe. Until next time, and thanks for watching.